I was catching and trying to make a bagel real quickly.
Okay, cool. So Swati has to leave at 3:45. Hi, Jules. And
hey guys, I'm back. Just had to let the cat out.
okay.
Forgot.
We didn't say anything, sweetie. Okay. So the idea here is I'm going to start for a minute because I'm the host, right? So am I allowed to speak, Doc?
Yes. Yeah, cool.
Okay, cool. Hello, everyone. Namaste and welcome to today's session. My name is Ravi Santlani and I'm the founder of ScooNews, India's largest media platform for the education sector. We have over 1,200 attendees registered for this webinar and are live with us both on Zoom and Facebook. Thank you all for your interest. We have been facing some issues since last couple of webinars, wherein all our webinars are full capacity on Zoom. And a lot of people doesn't read the emails that we send them as a confirmation, where it is clearly written that it is on first come, first in basis. 500 people on Zoom, it's over. Then it's live on our Facebook page. So a few of your friends, if you are here and if they're asking you that they are not able to enter, please do let them know that we are live on ScooNews Facebook page. And you could also share it on your timeline so that your network could also watch these amazing people talk, whatever. So today's webinar topic is children can only aspire to what they know exists, early lessons for education and schooling from a global crisis that is COVID-19. The panel is chaired by Dr. Ger Graus, OB, a very dear friend of mine, Global Director of Education, Kidzania, who's very fond of gifting me single balls every now and then when I go to London. Joined with the panelists, Dr. Arunabh Singh, Director, Nehru World School, Joe's Papa, but a lot of Indians are watching Spanish web series on Netflix, and they now know that they are pronounced Jose Papa. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jose Papa. He's Global Director of Vats. Dr. Mary Ashun is Principal of Ghana International School, Accra, and a very dear friend, Dr. Swati Popat, Vats, who's President of Popat Education Network, Early Childhood Association, and Association for Primary Education and Research. And she also sits on our advisory board, that is ScooNews. So, ladies and gentlemen, a few points that you need to listen to very carefully. If you are facing bandwidth issues, we suggest that you turn off the video so that you can listen to the audio with a better clarity. We'd love to hear from you. If you are attending via Zoom, you can use the Q&A button only. I'll repeat that, Q&A button only, to be used for any questions for the panelists. And on Facebook, like, of course, you can comment and we'll pick up a few questions from there. Q&A button is at the bottom of your screen and the presenters will try to answer your question if time allows. We did a very good experiment last time when Swati and Lena were doing this webinar a couple of days back. We asked all the attendees to put the questions which were unanswered on Zoom on ScooNews Facebook Live, and we requested Swati and Lena to find some time over the weekend and answer all the questions over there. And finally, a recorded version of this webinar will be available on our Facebook page, that is @ScooNews, and we will also send you an email with the YouTube link. You can follow all the panelists on their Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter accounts and interact with them there if you have any questions post this webinar. And for those of you just joining us, welcome and enjoy the webinar. Over to you, Doc.
Thank you, Ravi. I'm extraordinarily happy to be here, although I have to confess I'd much rather be with you in India now, but hey, that's the kind of virtual world we're forced into at the moment. Thank you, Ravi, to you and the team for making this happen, first and foremost, and thank you very much for your patience with me, technophobe par excellence. So I'm going to start with a little presentation, some thoughts, and then we'll go on to our panels. If you just bear with me for a second, the first technical test is now coming up, so cross your fingers. Okay, so I wanted to talk today about the role we play in all this, as always, because there's a lot of talk and there's a lot of talk about the way forward and how difficult it is and how hard it is. So to try and put some common sense into this, I'm surrounded by some wonderful people who I'll talk about in a little while. I'm very excited to be here, sharing the experiences, thoughts and ideas coming out of this crisis, COVID-19, and its effect on education. It is in-depth, long research, but all of it is real. And thank you also for enabling me to dress up again. It feels really good not to sit here in a t-shirt. Brilliant. So here we go. This is me, and my full name is Professor Dr. Ger Graus, OBE, or in short, Doc, as my friend Ravi calls me. I'm Director of Education for Kidzania, and I'm also the person trying to hold this together today. And I'm very privileged to be with some brilliant friends, Mary, Jose, Swati, and Arunabh, and you know, friendships are better than normal ships, and it is really true that we can't do any of these things on our own. So I'm very much looking forward to the thoughts and opinions where they come from. At the end, we'll also have some time for questions from you, and through Ravi and his team, we might even engage in a poll or two, which would be brilliant. Firstly, I'd like to kind of say that this crisis we're finding ourselves in is personal. And I just wanted to reflect on this a little bit. We talk a lot about institutions and structures and systems and economies, but in the end, this is highly personal. And it is highly personal for adults and children alike. Self-isolating and lockdown all sound a bit scary and a bit Kafkaesque, I think, but actually what it is, it's a bit strange and it's a bit lonely. And we're not made like that. Both my daughters, 14 and 24, have already concluded that they can't wait to be back to normal, whatever that means. And they want to be with their contemporaries, with their colleagues and with their friends. They've had enough of online. They want offline back. And we're not programmed, I think, to just work from home. Working from home was going to be the future. Well, as far as I'm concerned, they can keep it. Like all things, there's a time and a place for those things, and it's about appropriateness. And you can also have too much of a good thing. I miss being with people. I miss being around my colleagues all over the world. I miss speaking at events, and the same goes for my children. The little one wants to be back at school. The oldest one wants to be back at work with her colleague, and my son wants to be with his girlfriend. These things are highly personal, and we're not meant to walk 2 meters apart. We're programmed as people to hug and to hold hands. And that's, I think, why it all feels a bit wobbly and it feels a bit sad for all of us. But I think especially for kids, right? And we need to remember that. Next, I wanted to talk for a little bit about schooling. Schooling as opposed to education. Schooling being, in most countries, Monday to Friday, about 192 days a year, 9 to 4, being taught, as opposed to education, as in learning from cradle to grave, everywhere, and mostly from experience. I'm absolutely certain that the school will go up in children's estimations, and that teachers will go up in children's estimations to even more. And that, in a sense, I think, is a silver lining. And we need to look for silver lining. I even begin to detect that parents will follow suit. Yeah, that schools and teachers, as professionals, will also go up in parents' estimations, and that the professional value will rise. And that's another very big silver lining. I want to borrow a motto from one of my favorite organizations, Barcelona Football Club. Barcelona Football Club says about itself, més que un club, more than a club. And I'd like to apply it to schools, and I think particularly primary schools, més que una escola, more than a school. We are reminded that schools are not just factories and production lines of examination grades, but are at the heart of our communities, looking after us, particularly when the going gets tough. We are reminded that as societies, we need to give schools back the respect they merit. After all, where would we be without them? There is a sticker that reads, a car sticker that reads, "If you can read this, thank a teacher." Doctors and nurses can read, and so can prime ministers and presidents. In the future, the role and importance of the school at the heart of communities needs re-examining, on and offline, and the outcomes need to be acted on urgently. I think that's another silver lining. And ironically, we're now forced into a situation where, in many places, teacher assessment and the teacher assessment role through replacing examinations is most prominent again. Teachers as trusted professionals, like doctors. And this debate must be reopened urgently in the near future. There's a big opportunity, and opportunities, I think, are silver linings. There is the issue of online or offline, experience-based or textbook. This debate, I think, will develop further, and I suspect not least around quality, complementarity, emergency, whatever that means, learning, longevity, who the teachers are. Online does not replace the real thing, but can be magic and aid in some equality of experience and access, of course. Online and offline learning is not about either or about replacement or superiority. They are pieces of a jigsaw that focus on appropriateness and on the individual child, with clearer context between teaching, learning, and experiences. However, one of the biggest challenges to come out of all this is around access, equality, and fairness. The gap between have and have not, clearly linked to can and cannot. This is the biggest priority for the future, and it sits right in the middle of the social mobility arena, and it must be acted on urgently by all, not just government. There's a brilliant opportunity here for the private sector, for industry partners to act as corporate and social partners, and NGOs, of course. But we must stop kidding ourselves that we've solved this. Poor children, in whichever country you are, even in wealthy countries like the UK, poor children do not have access. It's unfair and it widens the gap. And I think that this position around schools and access for all also shows us how at times woefully out of touch with reality our governments can be. And how will the learning out of school be affected from a Kidzania angle and many others? And how in the short term will we collectively bring back public confidence to take children out into the big wide world again? How will we be clearer and better with greater purpose? And how, in the case of Kidzania, can we reach more children from all backgrounds in more places? And I genuinely can see in our case, a Kidzania online as a part solution, but not as an online afterthought, but integral, global, free, part of the provision and opportunity, so that the online environment is also the third teacher. And I wonder, linking that to experiences, whether we shouldn't develop a minimum set of quality out of school experiences for all children. Yeah? Perhaps this participation should even count towards formal qualifications. You can only get a star if you've participated in an X number of activities for an X number of hours. A broader, more balanced education contributing to better social mobility. And there is such a thing as society, and it's been heartwarming to witness this. 750,000 volunteers in the UK alone have come forward to help the vulnerable. And I'm very proud of my eldest daughter and my son to have joined, and the little one is volunteering at home. But it is also evident that as societies, we seem to have unlearned many good things, which need relearning as a matter of urgency. More and greater respect, less anger and selfishness, including online. There's no comment needed with this one. I just love it, and I admire it, and every time I read it, I get a lump in my throat. How brilliant that people can be like this. I also think that something interesting is happening around heroes, that they're no longer the Marvel type heroes, the presidents, adventurers, sports people, and celebs, but that they are nurses and doctors and cleaners and teachers and supermarket workers and ambulance drivers and volunteers and many others. But please let us make sure that in 12 months' time we still remember that, and that when the clapping has finished, the respect and the recognition remain for these people. And we shouldn't forget trust and confidence in education professions. This is the age of the expert. Internet access is about equality. It should be free to use at home for those who can't afford it, just like water and just like free school meals and access to health services. We need a clearer connect between content in and out of school learning, teaching, online, offline, and experiences. And maybe we need to rethink our schooling, including timetables and school days. There might be perfect reason to do more at home and more online, but as part of a bigger picture. And we need to ask ourselves the question, who can be our teacher? I wanted to share a couple of images at the end because I think they speak for themselves. It is clear that schooling, education, and care are the responsibility not just for the people inside the school building, but are the responsibility of all. And we have to remember that there's always light at the end of a tunnel and that there's always hope. And we, as the responsible adults, need to get that message across to help our children be less insecure and perhaps less scared. And you know what? Shortcuts lead to car crashes, and we can't afford car crashes. And finally, before we go to the panel, just please remember who you are rather than what you are. I think it is more likely to bring out the best in you and bring out the best in people, as has been evident in the last couple of weeks. So it remains for me to say thank you very much and to go over to our friends on this panel. Hello. I'm going to very briefly ask the panel to introduce themselves, who they are, what they do, where they're from, and perhaps tag into that straight away, how in their professional life on a day-to-day basis they've been affected by this crisis, but also maybe one or two of the positives that they've come across. And I'm going to start, Mary. Hello, it's good to see you. I'm going to start with Mary, if I may. Mary, tell us who you are and where you're from and how this has affected you.
Mary, you need to unmute.
You need to unmute her.
Everyone hear me now?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Yeah,
Perfect.
awesome. So thank you so much, Ger. Thank you so much, Ravi, for the invitation. Such a pleasure to be on the panel with Jose, Swati, and Arunabh. Such a pleasure. Great to meet you. And I was telling Arunabh yesterday when we chatted that to think that it took something like this for us to connect. Because we are all unified in one purpose. We want what's best for our children. And we want a great education because that creates great citizens for all of us. So my name is Mary Ashun. I'm the principal of Ghana International School, and it's based in Ghana's capital city of Accra. We're 65 years old, the oldest international school in the country. And we're proud to say that we existed even before independence of Ghana from Great Britain. So we've got quite a storied history. We have a student population around 1,300 and a staff population of 350. I would say maybe about 4 years ago, one of my teachers presented me with a painting of a ship, and the mast of the ship had our school colors and had the school name actually on the ship. And it was on very turbulent waters. And he said, I'm just bringing this to you. You don't hear some of our voices. Some of us are really quiet, but we just want you to know that we're thinking and praying for you because we know that this ship is large to turn. There's a lot of cargo on board, and when you face turbulent waters, you might have to throw some cargo overboard just to be able to steer the ship. So when Ger was asking about how this has affected me and the organization, the first word that came to mind was stress. And I'm sure everybody who's listening, whether you're a parent, whether you're a teacher, an administrator, you're somehow intimately involved in education. And the stress we all feel right now is palpable. We've all got to do something. We've all got to understand what's going on. We've all got to make sure we don't fall apart. And this causes a lot of stress. So being able to steer the organization, keeping the vision in mind, you know, and our motto is understanding of each other, all right? And how so important at this time when teachers are hoping I understand them and I'm hoping they understand me. And parents are hoping I understand them. And I'm like, for crying out loud, understand me too, you know, where I am. I want a school standing when we are ready to go back to school. That is critical for me. And for me, the people who will keep the school going are our teachers. They are my assets. I have to do whatever I can to make sure they don't fall apart. So you know what? Can you understand me too? All right. And how I'm trying to keep the ship from sinking, and how I'm working super, super hard round the clock. I feel like I'm working harder than I normally would. Maybe because, as Ger said earlier, you get the chance to walk out of your office and touch somebody, hug somebody, and Africans are huggy, and hey, how you doing? You know, hey, I'm eating banku or fufu, which are our favorite meals here. Do you want to join me? And your fingers both go into the same pot. And even the strength of that, it says something. I can't do that anymore. I'm one of those with older kids, so I'm here literally alone, and it's not the same thing, you know? So this has affected me personally as I try to keep my head above water. It has affected us professionally, the fact that we're struggling to connect. We're trying our hardest and we've got all these tools, but we're struggling to connect, and being able to balance the needs of the school with the needs of staff, with the needs of parents, with the needs of students. I sometimes am afraid I can't please everybody. And I know on a normal basis I can't. And so, yeah, that's where I'm at right now. That's where I'm at right now, leading our school.
Thank you, Mary. Can I jump straight from one school principal to a school director, Arunabh? What about you? One is tell us a little bit about yourself, but also how is it affecting you, and how do you see things?
Can't hear him. You need to switch on his audio.
Okay. Am I audible now?
Yes,
Yeah.
perfect.
So thank you, Doctor, for allowing me to speak. And if I had to speak for 4 minutes, Mary already spoken 3 minutes of that, so I'm not going to repeat what she says. I totally agree with everything that she said there. My name is Arunabh Singh. I help a team of teachers run a school. We're about 1,500 students. We've been around 42 years in a satellite city to New Delhi. And for 42 years, students have been coming to the school and studying. And that stopped 3 weeks back. So all these years, all the professional development that we had with our teachers was, when your class is in front of you, this is what you do. And just all of a sudden, like a switch, now the entire system is expecting this teacher to teach from Zoom. If I get my 1 minute, I want to reach out to those teachers there and say, you know what, even as education leaders, I think we are stopping short of actually recognizing what this means for you as teachers. Yes, my job has become difficult, so has the jobs of a lot of others, but the job of a teacher, she knows that that student in front of me knows this platform much better, but I need to emerge as the expert and the person who guides this entire session. So no matter what we trained on and what our professional development was, nothing had made us ready for this. And when teachers do go and engage, my simple message would be, as much as the kids would probably need a bit of content that you are teaching them, but more than that, they actually need that connect with you and connect with their classmates, because this is the first time and hopefully the last time that something like this is happening to them. And picking up a strand from earlier in the conversation, where data perhaps was a want till 4 weeks back, and consistent data has now become a need. So the journey from want to need, hopefully the governments would realize how important it is for us to stay connected and look at this once they're done providing these emergency services. I'm very, very sure that schools across the world have already changed forever. What we are doing now is not just a response that we are giving to this difficult situation, but it would actually change our DNAs forever. We would be so much better prepared the next time something even close to this happens. And I'll take the last 30 seconds thanking my team for actually being that hero and standing up, delivering with absolutely no training whatsoever. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, and also thank you for that optimism. Although, of course, we hope that something like this will not happen again. The idea that we'll be better ready next time is important, and we may want to come back to in a little bit. So if I go from the schools scenario and I go globally, Jose, I think we should be meeting in Sao Paulo in a couple of weeks' time, and then we're going to meet pretty much everywhere as is our want. And now you're just leaving me to my own devices back here in the UK. Well, no, seriously, one, tell us a little bit about yourself, but also I'm absolutely fascinated on this whole aspect of global impact on an organization like BET. So, and thanks for being here.
So first of all, I'd like to thank you, Ger. Thank you, Ravi. This is a very special opportunity for us to first send out a message of optimism, a message of us getting together, getting close, means that we are having a chance to transform the world for the better. So there's a lot of discussion every time you go online, every time you see the news. There's a lot of panic, a lot of scare, a lot of concern, and I am a natural optimist. Everything I see in my life is around hope. So I think that I'm a very spiritual being. I think that this whole transformation of the world will bring us closer as spiritual beings. So this is a highly positive transformation for our lives in terms of how we're going to get together as human beings. So first, I'd like to begin with a message of hope. Okay, as you ended up your presentation, which was great. But I am the chairman of BET, and BET is the most relevant EdTech show in the world. So one of the primary platforms for the development of education in the world. And it has been obviously a very challenging time for the events organizers and every organization that involves getting people together. So gathering, and but for us, I think it's a huge opportunity to reset many things, the way that we interact with each other, the way that we envision the future for the platform, the way that we establish digital as the kind of axis for setting the tone of our future, which will actually have a chance today. And today's a very special day because we're going to have our Global Education Council meeting later. And I think that you've set the tone, Ger, for what we should be debating today as a group, because we have a responsibility. When we talk about children, we have a responsibility of acknowledging the challenges that they're facing now, given the circumstances of what's happening in the world. And technology is playing a fundamental piece on how we're going to be interacting with each other, but how we're setting the cornerstone of the future. And this for us at BET is a huge privilege, because BET was set more than 30 years ago to become this platform that integrates technology within education. And we never thought that we would get an opportunity as profound as the one we have today to really set the purpose of why technology is so fundamental to drive education to the future. And this is what we should be discussing this afternoon, because we all, and not just the Global Education Council, but everyone which is now taking part of this panel here, everyone that is engaged in education, we have a responsibility to acknowledge that technology is not something that is part fundamentally from all the government policies that we have across the world. Everyone at all layers of society engaged with technology in a way that permits actually society to progress. And today what this virus is bringing us is the opportunity to acknowledge those that do not have the opportunities that your kids, my kids, many of Mary's students, etc., they have, because many across the globe today, they have to stay at home, but they're not able to engage with the evolution of their educational progress because technology is not there. And this is something that we should collectively work together with the governments to setting the policies the right way to really kind of make this exponentially evolve. So make technology serve as the true lever for the evolution of all the layers of society. Okay, so this is what we stand for. This is what BET stands for. And I think our purpose has been renovated, which I am very glad and very proud of. So,
thank you, my friend. I think that's very, very inspiring and very very warming. And I think I agree with you. I think we're in a unique point whereby we are either going to get this very right, our next steps in terms of inclusivity and digital, or let's not talk about the or. But I think the pressure on us is to get it right for the children. I also think there is a divide amongst the children, not just in terms of rich or poor, but also quite often about older and younger children, because I feel in many cases that the education of the younger children, which is more often than not, thankfully, play, is often kind of, I think, a little bit ignored. And the closer you get to examination ages, the more important things seem to come. So Swati, if you are there, I'd please like to hand over to you now.
Hi, I hope you can hear me and see me.
Yes.
Thank you, Ger, for putting forth this panel, and thank you, Ravi. And I must say, Jose, we at Podar always have attended BET. And in fact, being a very technologically forward organization, BET is where our management, Dr. Pavan Podar, always visits every Jan in UK. So keep doing the good work that you are doing, because we get to know global ideas on EdTech, which is so important. I have always been passionate and represented the early childhood community. And it has been a difficult thing for the early childhood community to go online. Because as you know, children thrive on attachments. Children thrive on human touch, human presence. And for this community to go online, it was a very difficult task. Thankfully, we had a Google Hangout with all educators in the community, and we guided them on what is right and what is wrong. So for us, for example, at Podar, we have around 498 preschools in India. And many of them are in very, very remote villages and towns. So access to Wi-Fi becomes a challenge. So when we were planning the home-based learning experiences for them, it was indeed a big challenge for us. And we tried to use all possible medias. So for many of these which we can't reach out to, we are using WhatsApp videos of the teachers. We are trying to ensure that the children see their teachers every day live, because that is the most important thing. Each school has been trained to use different formats. So all across India, they're using that. We have 2 schools in the UAE in Dubai. Dubai closed its schools and they're going to stay closed now till June. The difference which I'm seeing in parents here and there is that parents here have really supported the online home-based learning. And because what we did was, we said, let's not concentrate on subjects right now. It's not reading and writing and math, which is more important right now. It's life skills. This is the right time for the parents to engage the children in activities like home chores, in helping them understand relationship management, in helping them understand their emotions. We are talking to the parents that please talk in positive ways. Your children must see resilience in you, because this is the age at which they imitate adults. And so this is how we are keeping our engagement happening across our 498 schools, which means 45,000 children and their parents. So we started going live on the 7th of April. Today is the 3rd day, and we have received millions of photographs and videos from parents of how they are enjoying this connect that they have with their school. We even saw some cute photographs where children were sitting with their school uniform because they're missing school, and that was really endearing. So overall, I think what we are trying to do with the littlest citizens of this world is to try to ensure that they don't lose their connect with play, and they don't lose their connect with humans.
Thank you, Swati. There's a number of very interesting questions coming in, which I'll try and bring into the next question really. And my next question exists of two aspects. One is, and Arunabh, you refer to this, next time we will be better ready. And so the question is, so what will that mean for us? How will we be better ready? And secondly is, what is our message to policymakers and government, for example, because we can't do all of those things on our own. And if I might just weave some of the questions that have come from the audience in with this, and they are very much about how can we keep engaging children online, because that seems to be a challenge. You have to do that for a long period of time, and maybe there's a lesson in there for us in considering the future. And even in some cases, how can we encourage children to join in online? So I think I alluded in my presentation to online isn't either or, right? Online, offline isn't either or, but it needs to do this. I'm going to start with Swati, please, because I know, Swati, you're going to need to leave us at some point in the not too distant future. So Swati, how will next time look for you? What will be better? And what do we need from the policymakers to help us achieve that?
So next time, first of all, I hope and pray never happens. But if it does, next time we would be like, for example, this time we did all our home-based learning, all the plans, everything, and we were just ready to send it out to the parents when we realized that children are going to miss their school, and we have not prepared the children that school is now going to come on a screen in their home. And that's why then I hurriedly wrote a story for the children to help them understand about coronavirus and why the school is going to come on their screen. So maybe this experience tells us that we need to first look at children's emotional settlement, development, before we jump into the academic, because I know a lot of schools try to do things because they think parents want this. But this is a learning for the school community, that parents look up to us when it comes to education of children. So we mustn't do things just to please the parents. We must keep the child at the center of every decision that we make and convince the parent what is right and what is wrong for the child. As the president of the Early Childhood Association, we are present in 48 territories in India, and we have supported Balwadis. These are government preschools. And when they shut down, they came to us and they said, how do we now connect with the children? We had to hurriedly teach those teachers how to make videos using the phone and how to use WhatsApp to send those videos back to the children and to get feedback from the parents. So I think the government now needs to understand that Wi-Fi access should not be a paid access. It should be a free access. And it should reach the remotest towns and villages, because children are everywhere. And all of them will have to have this connect, especially in times like this. You know, children are feeling so disconnected, staying at home the whole day. So you can imagine when they are in a house which has more than 15 members in a small room and they are asked not to go out. Can you imagine what these children must be going through? So it's very, very important for, I feel, as an early childhood educator, that we must think of the life skills, which means the soft skills, which is the socio-emotional development, whenever we are planning any technology equipment, anything for the world, especially for schools. Please think of early childhood. I was so happy last year when I had gone to the Vats show. They have a whole pavilion now for early childhood education. And that's so necessary. I like Kidzania because it allows children to play. And I feel it's time now for schools to get out of this classroom scenario that we are all in. I feel, why not have a Kidzania in a school? Why can't school create their own Kidzanias, you know? It's so amazing. Role play is something that helps you take care of your emotions, helps you in social development, it helps you in language, and it helps you cognitively. So I feel going forth, one is the reach to every remotest child, because it takes a village to raise a child. So we all need to ensure that rich, poor, mine, yours, we all need to think of all of these children when we take our decisions. And number two, the classroom needs to, I think, wrap up for the century now. And we need to understand that we need to bring back play and projects back into the classroom. And my last thing is, why we struggled in early childhood is, we were saying the online is bad, screens are bad for young children. And I now would like to appeal to everybody out there that when a new technology or anything comes, please don't throw the baby with the bathwater. It's very important for us to weigh the pros and cons and think about the balance in using this. So I feel we will start again with technology literacy. I think we are teaching children about all kinds of things in the world, but we are forgetting that the first thing that every child born sees a mobile phone. So we must teach them screen and technology literacy.
Thank you so much for that, Swati. Arunabh, if I may come to you in a sense with the same question, but also taking in again questions from the audience, which kind of link. One, there is the issue about, so what do we do with kids who haven't got internet access? What do schools do with those? And how would we do that differently next time? But if I may, with you, I'm also interested, and again, that comes through the audience, in the issue of, should we change our attitudes as to how we deal with technology in schools? In many schools in the UK, for example, it is the teacher dictates which technology is used, mobile phones are not used, and it is technology as a means of teaching rather than a means of exploring. And it feels to me that maybe that too needs to change. So if I can throw these issues in your lap, I'd be very grateful.
Thank you for that question. This can be a delit topic. I will try to answer in a couple of minutes with what I can. With regards to the first question of what happens when there is no data. Well, when there is no 4G data, then you go to 2G and 1G and no G. And the governments would need to come in and say, okay, are there television channels? Are there perhaps radio channels to engage these learners? So there is some bit of synchronous learning that everybody is doing together. And then there are portions that or open-ended questions or projects that you leave children with, that they can do this on their own and learn from their own experiences, because experience is everything, as we also learned from one of the slides with you as the author. So that is what we can actually be creating for our students who don't have data. With regards to how we look at technology in schools, you're very right. As school leaders, we are scared of technology. We know we need to use it, but we are scared. Like I know in our school, we possibly spend more time, effort, and money in making sure that our internet is curated than the amount of money that we spend on access of internet. So as soon as you talk about bringing your own devices to school and bringing your own platforms to school, that portion of the teacher that says, well, now I'm not in control, how do I work with this? But it is that point that I feel is going to take a major shift, because the teacher who comes back into that classroom is not going to be the teacher who left that classroom 2 months back. She now knows how to use these collaborative tools, and she knows how to harness technology and how to harness internet. So I think all of us can actually be slightly more optimistic about how does technology get integrated into the schools when we come back. But before we do, I'm also very sure that we are going to be seeing a lot of false summits, where we are going to see or think, okay, next week this is getting over, but it doesn't. That frustration that you talked about, or the lack of engagement that you talked about, it has to start getting addressed. So, for example, we've been in lockdown for about 3 weeks, but there are countries that have been in lockdown for 6 weeks or 2 months. Or if you speak to some of the principals from Hong Kong, they've actually had a situation like this on and off for about 6 months because of the protest earlier. And those people are saying, come the 5th week, if all that you've been giving to your children is content, then you're going to see a steep decline in their attendance and their engagement. So teachers need to build these small communities and create opportunities for students to learn in smaller groups. If we fail them there, then we are actually planning to fail ourselves.
True.
I think that's a very interesting word, the word community and schools as community. So my wife's school is a community school, and also answering some of those questions about what happens when children are not online. They've literally had teachers get in cars and dropping off packs at children's homes. I think in some of those cases, those solutions are not big solutions, national solutions. I think they are local solutions by schools that are at the heart of the community and know the community. But I think, to your point also, I totally agree that teachers teaching and learning in terms of the use of technology needs to change and needs to become braver, I think, in that sense. Mary, the same question to you, but I'm also
Dr. Ger, can I interrupt?
Yeah, of course.
I'd like to say bye to everybody. I am off for a storytelling session. Maybe when you are done from here, you can join me there. And it was nice to be on this panel. Sorry that I had to leave so early and abruptly. But Jose, nice to meet you. Arunabh, thank you so much. And Mary, hopefully see you soon. And Dr. Ger, hopefully at one of the Kidzanias very soon.
Swati, I hope to see you in
Thank you so much.
What about me, Swati?
Ravi, okay. Ravi, okay.
Well, it's beautiful with that bindi. I've seen that for the first time here.
Really?
Beautiful.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Jose, see you at the BET show. Bye-bye.
Thanks, thank you, Swati. Mary, so back to you. The same question to you, but I'm also interested in, and again, we were WhatsApping about this yesterday, about parents and the role of parents in this as the school community. And do you see changes, or are changes needed in that relationship? Mary, did you get that? Can you hear me? Hello? Jose, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
You can hear me, cool. I'm just checking what's happening. Jose, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Cool, Jose, I think I might have to go back to Mary in a minute. What does this mean for BET? What will BET do differently because of this? how will the technology content, the presentation, Bet's approach, how will it change so that when this happens next time, we as the Bet family can say that we were part of being better ready. You know, all these people who come to Bet London, 40,000, for example, what will they see different next time round?
I lost.
Look, I think that
sorry.
I think what we are experiencing, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes,
can you hear me?
Yeah.
So this is a generational change. So it has been the biggest one actually on modern era, and we cannot take it lightly. So for good and bad, the world is different already. And I think that going back to the optimist route and thinking with always the optimist mind, it is a true privilege for us to be part of such massive transformation and for us to have a chance to actually look under the positive viewpoint and try to transform things as much as we can. So I think that organizations across the world will change dramatically, because they will see all the things that were useless, that could be changed, that could be transformed, and accelerate exponentially such changes. And this is not just for Bet, but it's around any organization, any community in the world, any association. Everything is being dramatically changed in an exponential way. So there's no more, the idea of linear thinking is gone out of the window. And we need to take advantage of what exponentiality means, and then how we intersect this with technology. Because what we've seen in the last 15 years, 20 years, in terms of technology evolution, has been greater than in the last 100 of years, exactly because of the idea of exponentiality. And we've been discussing this a lot at the GEC, as you know, Ger. But now, this has transformed it further, because it accelerated all the exponentiality in an exponential way. I know it's hard to explain, but that's the truth, because we'll see new trends, new patterns, new way of people engaging, new way of people interacting, that will accelerate at a pace that if we would see in the next decade, we'll see in the next year. So I think it's a privilege for us, because education is at the heart of everything. Education will set the founding stone of the new generations. Education will ultimately define how we see this new future, how we are prepared for the new future. So I think we are at Bet with the responsibility of acknowledging that said transformation has come for good, and we need to embrace it. We need to have an optimistic tone. We need to see and set forth a responsible path in terms of how we transform ourselves to adapt for such transformation that the world is experiencing. So I think it's a combination of vision, responsibility, sharing, embracing technology, and having interactions such as this one that you are now promoting. Okay.
Thank you, Jose. Mary, can you hear me now?
Yes, I'm back.
Perfect. That's very, very happy to have you back. Mary, this is also coming through a lot of the audience questions. It's still the same question. What will different look like next time? How will we be better prepared? But I'm particularly thinking around a number of the questions that are coming in. And we were WhatsApping about this yesterday afternoon, which is to do with parents. Right. One is parents all of a sudden are awarding teachers massive pay rises because I think they begin to understand that it's not just child minding. But I think also the issue of how the parent becomes a better member of the school community rather than just a customer, right? And actually is an active participant, a much more active participant in their children's education, if we are to come to a positive way forward. So if I can ask your thoughts on that one, Mary, I would be very grateful.
I would love to. And I must apologize for dropping off. And I was laughing to myself because this harkens to what all the panelists had alluded to about connectivity issues. And I've got 2 networks at home. So as soon as I dropped off the one, I was able to switch to the second one to get on. Not everybody has that access, you know, and I realize it's a huge privilege, and it's something that can be spoken to at another time. I think for the parents, that feeling, again, it's just all the change here. And I think as schools, we need to do more to draw them in, as you were saying, to get them to be better collaborators with us, understanding them and realizing that this is also just unbelievable. And for those who are not in lockdown and parents have to go to work, who's going to manage the child at home? You know, so some of that understanding then gets thrown back onto our laps, where we start asking ourselves, should it be a synchronous or asynchronous approach that we use? Because a synchronous approach for much younger kids is going to require us to actually monitor the child or supervise the child. And if there's nobody who is able to do that, how is the child expected to stay on top of things? So one of the things I would say is the free Wi-Fi. Right now, with what just happened to me, and I'd always said that, but what just happened to me, we need to make that very much available. And then to those that are less privileged, to look at different tools that are out there. I think the focus has been a lot on online, being online, Wi-Fi, devices, handheld devices, but what about TV? What about radio? And in Ghana, the government has done a good job of doing that, and has literally overnight, it seems, set up a TV station dedicated solely to learning. So different grades have got the time that different courses or subjects will come on, and they are able to be able to get on TV. They've got programs as well for online learning, and that's also going to feed into this whole process. But the things that we won't know until this is over, how well it worked. When I look at my experience and I'm thinking to myself, what could I have done slightly differently? I think that my school was somewhat prepared. We were able to deliver something. We closed school on Friday. We set up on Monday. We were teaching already. So by all intents and purposes, we were ready to go. I think for me, and maybe it's not just our school problem, it may be a global problem. It may be the global South, but we've got a sort of, what would I call it? For fans of The Lion King, Hakuna Matata, all right? No worries, you know, there's no sense of urgency. And sometimes for those of us who want to get people to realize that this could come again. I love the fact that Swati said, and we hope this will never happen again. And I was sitting there thinking, I'm sorry, but I think it will. I think it will. If it's not this, it's going to be something else. And the new normal is getting ready for change and getting ready to adapt at short notice, which means that those of us who are in charge of setting vision for schools, we need to consider as many possibilities, as far out as they are, consider those possibilities and set simulations in place. So for me, what I'm thinking about for next year, God willing, if we're able to go back, is could I possibly have 1 week every term where it's online learning, or it's learning that is done away from campus? If I can get a TV station to give me some time so that our younger learners don't have to be glued to a screen, a handheld device all the time, but can I do this on a much more regular basis, like I would do fire drills? When there's an intruder in the school, we do lockdown practice and all of that. Can I add that to this? Because I need everybody to be ready for when the next time comes, and we need to switch right away. We can't afford to lose time. So the sense of urgency, I feel, is something that we really need. We need our governments to actually set up units that think about this sense of urgency, and they may be whack, but they're thinking about the next big thing that possibly no school on a physical campus, and possibly all connectivity is down online, no Wi-Fi. What do you do? What if there's no TV? What do you do? How are we going to keep kids learning? And there's an element there too, for me, where I ask myself, can I make children look for their own learning? Because there may be a time when I cannot reach them at all. Have I taught my children to be self-sufficient with whatever they have at home? Do they know how to create timetables themselves? Do they know how to balance their lives? I will have breakfast at this time, and then I'll do this kind of work at this time. Maybe that's something now we have to put in the curriculum. Manage your life without life as we know it. What would that be like? And sometimes this is in games and apps and stuff like that the kids play. Simulations like, you've been stranded on Mars or something. And adults look at it like it's a huge waste of time. Well, guess what? Sometimes it's going to feel like you've been stranded on Mars. What do you do?
I think that's a really interesting point, Mary. And before I forget on that, I think because if the next crisis is there is no online, then how do we cope? Because that is also entirely possible. And my youngest daughter has started sewing on a sewing machine. So I look forward to wearing all sorts of really jazzy gear. But I think that there is a little bit also, and I'm grateful for your comments on this, Mary, that because schools have become, particularly secondary schools, have been forced to become places of teaching rather than of learning, because we have to do this whole examination stuff. Yeah. So all of a sudden, when young people are left to their own devices, we are then surprised that they might not cope very well when they're left to their own devices. And I think the aim needs to become that, like you say, that we work towards young people and children who can write their own narrative of the possible. And we need to focus on that and make that part of a debate too. And parents need to, and we're not doing it for parents, but we're doing it with them. Yeah, as my wife says, every child is everyone's responsibility. I'm going to go to the last question. And the last question is around silver linings, really. And I think because it's very easy to sit on the fence and be negative and bemoan our lot. But I think that we've tried to do, we need to look forward. And every cloud has one. And if I look over the last couple of weeks and a bit longer, in the UK, for me it is, there's a very famous saying by a former prime minister who said there is no such thing as society. But I'm very, very happy to conclude that that is wrong. And there is, that the silver lining for me is that when it comes to it, people young and old and rich and poor and whatever they are, they do pull together. And there are wonderful ideas and wonderful suggestions, and there is brilliant online learning and teaching going on. And will it be better next time? Yes, it will. But for me, the silver lining is that our society, however much we moan sometimes, and believe me, the UK, I say this as a Dutchman who's allowed to stay in the UK now post-Brexit, but the UK moans a lot at times, but it's been lovely and wonderful to see that society does exist. And I think that is something for me to build on with our children and let our children be part of that. So that's my line. Arunabh, yours, please.
The new normal is possibly the line that I pick up going forward, and how this life does change. I want to go back to a moment which is in London in 2004. There was a school that I was in, and they were doing these rescue boats were being taken up and down by kids. And I asked the principal, why are you doing this? And the principal said, you know what, when the Titanic sank in 1912, he says, when the Titanic sank, we found out that we were inadequately prepared for rescue in deep sea. So our school was amongst the schools established to make sure that if ever there is a ship deep at sea and there is a rescue mission, this time we are ready for it. So it was amongst 8 schools that UK had built to withstand an emergency like that. I would agree with Mary and say this, hopefully, for most of us, will prepare for that day with nothing. Hopefully, we would be more ready. And with data, Mary, I would say let's do two situations. One, that you are not in school like you are not in school right now with data. And then let's do half of it that you are not in school like right now, but this time with no data. And that will possibly also, tell our kids, give them some more survival skills. Because all of us certainly need these survival skills. And we are all very privileged people who think that having data or not having data is a challenge. We are already a very small subsection of the world for whom not having data is a challenge. So for those for whom it's not even a question, it's about time that as governments and as educators, we started thinking about them as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Jose, if I may, please, your silver lining, apart from meeting again with me this afternoon, of course, but your silver lining.
I think that, as I said, and actually as Arunabh mentioned, the sooner we adjust and we acknowledge that there is a new normal and that life as we know has been changed forever, at least for the next generations to come. And if we look on the basis that there is privilege to being part of such journey, and as I mentioned, there is a lot of optimism when we look on the challenge and the chance and the opportunity of making change happen faster. I think this is the tone, acknowledging as soon as possible that there is a new normal, because things happened so fast. Transformation was so deep and so soon that many are still in denial. And it's been a month only. So when we look behind and we look at our lives as it was only a month ago, and we acknowledge where we stand today, where the world stands today, who could ever thought in the wildest science fiction narratives, you see, that we would be experiencing something like this? So the sooner that we acknowledge that there is a new normal, that interactions have changed, technologies roll into how society will run, how businesses will run, what is the impact from fundamental things on how we relate to each other, how we buy things, how we do our groceries, how we study, how we provide education, government policies. And I know now we need to ultimately control a serious sanitary issue, which is what everyone should be concerned, because lives are at stake. But the sooner that we acknowledge that this is the new normal and we need to adjust in parallel to this new world, the better we'll be equipped for life as we will understand it to be. So that's my final take here.
Thank you so much. Mary, I'll finish with you, please.
Thank you very much. I've got two silver linings that I'd like to talk about. I could talk about much more. The first one I alluded to when I first came online is that unity of purpose. The fact that I know you, I know Jose, but I didn't know Arunabh and I didn't know Swati, right? And through them, I'm looking at some of the chats and people are actually asking me direct questions. I don't know them. That unity of purpose that probably at the back of our minds, we always wanted. We knew that we would thrive on that, but we never had any time. And so for me, the silver lining is time to be able to connect with other educators, lovers of education, for us to talk about things that affect all of us. So unity of purpose, my first one. The second one is a certain open-mindedness that I'm finding we are all either suddenly having or allowing ourselves to have. And this is because what's happening has never happened before. And so all of a sudden, our minds are open. and we are thinking about possibilities to explore new technology, to even explore uncomfortable things, right? And so all the stuff that makes us uncomfortable, we normally wouldn't even go there. But we are so uncomfortable now that we have no choice. And so for me, the silver lining, the second one, is that level of discomfort that this has created is forcing us to be open-minded, and we'll get more inventive in the process.
Thank you so much, Mary. I think this is it. It's gone really quickly. We should meet like this again, I hope. Yes. But it's been a privilege, Arunabh and Jose and Mary, and of course Swati, to be with you. I look forward to another silver lining whereby the children from all your schools and all your organizations are interacting, because this is a global issue. And I think one thing for me that it's also shown is that, that having borders and building walls is not a very good idea when it comes to coping with something that's quite tricky. And to enable our children to be better people, better citizens, and better equipped to deal with whatever is coming ahead, I think getting to know each other would help tremendously. Ravi, again, thank you very much to you and your team. I understand all of this is going to be ending up on ScooNews and Facebook and wherever else, and it's recorded. I'm off for a cup of coffee and to walk the dogs before I meet Mary and Jose again a bit later on. To the audience, thanks for listening. Thanks for being with us, and I hope it's been half as enjoyable for you than it has been for me. So bye for now, and
very much.
Be safe.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you all. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, all attendees. Thank you, Doc. Thank you, Jose. Thank you, Arunabh. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Swati. And you all, please, please, please stay safe, stay indoors, use mask, watch a lot of movies, listen to some good music, and as and when we all get to meet, single malt for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ravi. All the best.
Thank you, Ravi.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
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 Yeah.